is widespread.
Nearly everyone in Carter County has been affected by the flooding that bombarded residents from Roan Mountain and Hampton to Swimming Pool Road and Dennis Cove. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tim Cable.
And I'm Amy Caulfield. What used to be homes for many residents are now just empty lots. All grim reminders of the awesome force of Mother Nature. The
waters are now receding, but cleanup efforts have really just begun. 4 people are confirmed dead and many others are missing. News Channel 11's A.J. Sterling has been at the scene since this morning and joins us now with the latest. A.J., what's happening now?
Tim, as night falls, the devastation of these floodwaters is starting to sink in. At least 5 people are dead now, with at least another 8 that are still missing after flash floods crashed through Hampton. The floods came so quickly that many Carter County residents had no other choice but to flee to shelters. Hundreds of people were evacuated. Some are still not able to return home this evening.
One of my neighbors come a beating and banging on. I thought she was knocking my door down. And I jumped up and run to the door in my gown tail, and I said, "What in the world's wrong?" She said, "The waters are getting up over the road." I said, "Oh, good Lord."
Dozens of families are still hoping their loved ones are not in these waters where temperatures dip as low as the 40s. If you are missing someone still due to the flooding, you are asked to call the Carter County Sheriff's Department immediately. That number is 542-1852. Coming up tonight at 6, we'll have the latest update on the devastation caused by these floodwaters. Tim?
All right, AJ, thank you for that report.
Thanks.
What can family members do to speed up the efforts? We'll find out more on that in just a minute. But rescue efforts did start early this morning, long before the sun rose. You didn't have to see the water to know it was raging through the area. You could even hear it. News Channel 11 photographer John Bray was on the scene of the flooding all night through the morning. Christine Sorensen reports.
A rescue worker gulped for air as the water swept him down the street turned river. Fortunately, he had ropes to save him. Just past midnight, people awoke to knocking at their doors.
We were in bed and the dog started barking. We didn't know what was going on. We heard it raining and got up and looked out, and water was coming up in the yard. And they just told us it was best to get out.
As the night wore on, shelters flooded with people, just as the streets filled with water. People slept on bleachers. Dogs whimpered at their new surroundings. Children ran off their energy. Another day of school canceled. And some people just sat and worried, prayed.
It scared me. But I don't really know what's going to happen, but, you know, I got my family, and that's all that matters to me.
The respite of Hampton Elementary School didn't last long. Nothing could stop the water from entering hours later. The water reached what some Carter County residents thought was untouchable. Elizabethton's famed Veterans Monument became an island in the night. Raging water threatened the town's most beloved landmark, the historic covered bridge. People left behind their homes and everything in them, not knowing what they'd find when the water receded.
Hopefully it won't come up that far, you know. Everything we got is down there, so you never think about it till it happens to you.
Most residents here never realized the sheer power of the rivers and water around them until it rose to an ugly level. Christine Sorensen, News Channel 11.
The Red Cross has set up several evacuation shelters to help assist those in need. Cloudland High School, Little Milligan School, and Elizabethton High School are open to anyone needing safe shelter.
Houses are destroyed and roads are washed away. So far, 5 people have died, including an 11-year-old girl found less than 2 hours ago. And others are still missing in the wake of last night's floodwaters, including a Sullivan County service worker. Hundreds of people were evacuated, and some have no homes to go back to. The relentless rains were pouring down in numerous counties. Emergency crews have been working non-stop, and that is work that will continue into the foreseeable future. But our Winter Flood 98 coverage begins in Carter County, where News Center 5's Teresa Bush is standing by live. Teresa, I understand the rain there was torrential.
More than a foot of rain fell here overnight. It came quickly, racing down the mountains and into the valleys with a vengeance, leaving nothing behind but a path of destruction. It's the worst flooding they've ever seen, and the effects are sure to be felt for a long time.
We've been living here about a year.
Ornell Burker's home is barely standing. More than half of the foundation is gone.
It was great far. And I stayed till it started coming over the bank. And that's about 12 o'clock when I left here.
The water is receding, but it's still 5 to 6 feet higher than usual. But residents here say that is nothing compared to what they saw earlier this morning. At one point during the flooding, they say the water roared several feet over the bridge. Emergency management officials are estimating the damage will reach the millions. In an aerial survey, they took a look at more than 500 homes. 350 of them, they say, are either damaged or destroyed.
Looked like a tornado had gone right up the highway and just spread devastation in its path.
Authorities tell us that several people are still unaccounted for here in Carter County. Dozens of volunteer search crews are busy right now combing the banks of the rivers and creeks looking for any signs. We're here at the Carter County Courthouse, the headquarters for the county's emergency management service, and we've seen rescue teams from all over the area come in here today. And as a matter of fact, just a little while ago, we saw a rescue team from Knoxville, Tennessee. So there are a lot of people here in this area trying to help out. Meryl, you mentioned earlier that the rescuer is still missing. At this hour, still no word on whether he has been found. He and 3 others were attempting to rescue a family. They were trapped on the hood of their car. Meryl?
Okay, Teresa, thank you very much. And as Teresa said, all along the banks of the destructive Doe River, searchers are trying every means possible to find that emergency service worker, Junior Godsey. He met peril in a rescue raft and has been missing since 1:30 a.m. News Center 5's Lisa Mitchell joins us now with details on just what happened. Lisa?
Merrill Junior Godsey was among those who came to the rescue of flood victims from Sullivan County, and fellow rescuers hold out hope tonight he'll be found alive. This is the devastating aftermath on Spring Street in Hampton. Homes destroyed, residents stunned, but many lucky to be alive.
They didn't have any forewarning whatsoever to even be out of their homes. It's just unbelievable.
I was just glad to be alive. Didn't know if I was going to live or die. You know, the water was rushing and it just kept coming up.
Judy Miller realized peril just as luck brought a fire truck to her front yard. You can only imagine what it was like to be rescued by the fire truck and then to have the fire truck stalled in the floodwaters.
Kept hollering, you know, he kept on the radio to try to get help, and then finally they came with the boat and got us out.
It was in just such circumstances that Sullivan County EMS worker Junior Godsey is missing.
We had people that were trapped on the top of houses that we were trying to get to. We had a gentleman that was in a small camper that was needing to be rescued.
As a member of a special rescue team, Godsey came with Vance and others out of county to help.
The rescue boat with 4 occupants in it was trying to rescue some people from their homes, and for some odd reason their motor had shut down on their engine. They hollered at us that they were going down.
3 were found. Some 12 hours later, the boat was found too, but the search for Godsey goes on. Sullivan County Executive Gil Hodges is among those here holding out hope.
He did have his life-saving equipment on, his life jacket and a helmet, and so he could still be found, you know.
Officials say Godsey has been with Sullivan County EMS more than a decade and is a volunteer and member of the board of directors of the Kingsport Life-Saving Crew. Lisa Mitchell, News Center 5.
From WCYB, the region's #1 source for news, this is News Center 5 at 6.
The mark of this storm stretches deep into the mountains of western North Carolina. Mitchell County was one of those areas hardest hit, keeping emergency crews busy through the night and into the morning. In the Glen Ayers community, a dam has broken and roads are flooded. Rescuers have been pulling residents from their homes.
Still in shock. Property gone, loss, but that's life.
Residents in Glen Ayers say bridges are flooded out and travel tonight remains a challenge. Devastation in Carter County runs from Roan Mountain to Elizabethton. Raging waters have left countless homes gutted and house trailers buckled or sunk in deep mud. Numerous cars have been damaged or destroyed. And as the death toll has mounted, so have tales of survival. Hazel Fuller and her husband were swept off their porch.
When he went, he pulled me in, and we both went down between the two houses over towards that fence, and we grabbed a hold of the fence. That's the only thing that stopped us from continuing all the way down.
The couple held to the fence as long as 25 minutes before they were finally able to pull themselves to steps that led to safety. While downriver Elizabethton didn't sustain the brunt of the flood damage, business owners, residents, and city and county workers have been pumping water and shoveling mud all day. News Center 5's Greg Wallace reports on the cleanup effort.
As the swollen Doe River recedes, the cleanup begins. The cost of the damage can only be estimated. Water was 5 feet deep in the basement of this church.
And so we lost 3/4 of our Sunday school space in this.
Damage estimate?
Rough guess, I wouldn't have anywhere to begin really, but I would think $70,000, $75,000.
Having his car swept away in the flood, rescuing his mother-in-law, insurance agent Perry Perkins has a unique perspective on both cleanup and damage claims.
This is considered what we call an act of God, and actually for coverage it's going to be hard for people to understand. There's not a lot of coverage on homes.
Unless they have flood insurance?
Unless they have the flood coverage, yes, for the house and furnishings.
After you got in the car and was driving down the road, the water was, you know, like moving the car.
Most felt if the crest was only inches higher, the damage would have been much worse.
We lost our deck out back. It could have been a lot worse. It just barely got inside the building.
At the county garage, a few of the older buses were damaged and some were even lost to the flood. The newer ones were moved to the higher ground. This foresight also paid off at the waterworks department, where workers shut down the pumps so they wouldn't be contaminated with flood waters.
I feel very confident that we'll be seeing some federal aid for this.
In Elizabethton, Greg Wallace, News Center 5.
Well, the flooding has brought too much water into the Carter County Elizabethton area, and as a result, there's the possibility of too little water to drink. And in some areas, that water may also be unsafe. The situation has brought a warning from officials to not drink water from the rural Carter County systems without at least boiling it.
We have some water supplies that are down. They'll be polluted. We're bringing in some emergency drinking water donated by the Red Cross, and we'll deliver those to the centers today in the different areas. We'll have a water buffalo from Army Reserve that'll be coming in, and I've asked for help from the state to help us with a short-term solution.
Clark, who is heading up the emergency disaster operations for the county, says work will begin as soon as possible to restore the water systems that are down. Again, he urges caution against drinking the water until the okay is given. It's a somewhat different story in Elizabethton, where the flooding is not nearly as bad. But there are some problems with the water, prompting caution.
The flooding did overrun the Hampton Springs plants. It required the shutdown of the pumping operation due to electrical failure. Higher elevations in the city are without water as we speak right now, and we are advising that people conserve water.
The treatment plant on Gap Springs Road is up and operational, but it cannot handle the entire load for the city. A propane emergency and severe flood damage at Hampton High School cancel plans for an emergency shelter there. A propane tank at the school washed out and leaked. Efforts to drain and burn off the remaining gas and the potential for an...
That's the latest. AJ, people are just now getting a good look at things. How do things look?
Absolutely. Carter County residents are trying to salvage what's left. Debris from floodwaters are being collected, and now the damage is being assessed. The First Free Will Baptist Church sits along the Doe River in Elizabethton. At least 4 feet of water have been sitting in the basement since the floods. Look at the water lines left on the walls. They're the signs of a lot of damage.
We estimate the damage right now to be between $50,000 and $75,000. There's about 4 inches of mud all along the entire basement. All the drywall will have to come out. Any structural damage to the bricks or anything we're not sure of yet.
It's estimated over 500 homes have been damaged, and we're not talking about just a little bit of damage. Over 500 homes have sustained at least 50% of damage to them or more. Earlier today, we talked with the county executive. He tells us he expects the actual damage cost to go up somewhere around $20 million. Amy?
All right, A.J. Sterling live in Elizabethton. Thanks. We'll have another live report from Elizabethton tonight at 6.
Well, as we just saw, the cleanup is getting underway. Repair and rescue crews were hard at work again today trying to clean up some of the aftermath. News Channel 11's Karen Robinette was in Roan Mountain today and has more.
Washed out bridges, traffic jams, homes without power and water, EMS crews tired and exhausted. It all describes the scene. Rescue personnel continue the tiring process of combing the riverbanks, looking for missing people. Repair crews were hard at work as well, trying to clean up the streets, debris, and aftermath of Wednesday night's flood. Expert kayakers were called in by the Sheriff's Department to search remote parts of the river for bodies.
Yes, there's a kayak team and a land search team above us at this point now. They're above us, working their way down to us now.
EMS workers were just ahead of the kayakers doing house-to-house searches for the missing. 6 crews from Mountain Electric have already restored power to 1,100 people, but John Hartley says some areas just aren't accessible.
The roads and bridges are still not in very good shape. We've still got about 50 customers that we feel like that we may not be able to get to by tonight.
Temperatures are expected to drop here tonight, but that's of little concern to these men and women who say they will stay on the job until things are back to normal. In Roan Mountain, Karen Robinette, News Channel 11.
This got gone for me in about 35 minutes. It was all gone. Everything.
Nancy Ross reporting there. Rescuers in Madison County, North Carolina pulled the body of a flood victim out of the French Broad River today.
Authorities have identified him as 25-year-old Ernest Gosnell of Marshall. He had been missing since his boat overturned yesterday.
Another man in the boat survived. Rescuers pulled him out of the water by helicopter. The abuse and murder of a 4-year-old girl that deeply touched Dickinson County, Virginia residents is sparking some strong reactions now that the girl's mother and stepfather will go to prison. Many people say a maximum...
Emergency medical services worker, Bob Davis of Hampton, Virginia Davis of Hampton, Tammy Garland of Hampton, Jamie Garland of Hampton, Bernice Isaacs of Roan Mountain. A 7th body that has been recovered has not yet been identified. Governor Don Sundquist toured the flood-ravaged region by helicopter today.
The governor has declared Carter County a disaster area. News Channel 11's A.J. Sterling is in Elizabethton tonight to begin our team coverage. A.J.?
Al, rescue crews have continued finding more bodies, as you've said earlier. Now we've got this video just in. As you said, 7 people are now dead. The 7th person was found later this afternoon up near Roan Mountain. As you can see, rescuers have been very busy today. Now as the waters recede, rescue crews and residents continue to assess the damage, and the tragedy continues to worsen.
After a day of searching, the missing rescuer was finally found this morning. He lost his life while trying to save others.
He was one of my good friends. We went to school together and done some training together. You know, it's hard. It's hard when you lose anybody, whether it be a police officer, a fireman, or whatever, because we're all here for the same purpose.
Another body was found later this afternoon. Search teams say they are certain to find at least one more person along these waters.
We have found one of them's husband, and we know she was with him. We've just not been able to locate her yet.
Meanwhile, Carter County residents will continue to assess their damage. County Executive Truman Clark estimates damage to be around $20 million. Over 500 homes have suffered serious damage. Governor Sundquist came to see the devastation in person. He says it rips your heart and soul.
If you think about 500 homes, over 50% damaged, and we saw mobile homes off the foundations in the river, on roadways.
Governor Sundquist will be asking for federal assistance from President Clinton. For now, rescuers will continue to search for those who aren't accounted for.
Rescue crews have called off their search for tonight. They'll get together tomorrow morning around daylight to see what else they can find out there. Al?
AJ, so many people affected by this. We talked about the federal aid. When will it be awarded to Carter County people?
Well, when and if it will be awarded, President Clinton will have to go over the assessment from Governor Sundquist and then make a decision. They say that should take a couple of days before we'll find out what type of aid can come our way. Al?
AJ Sterling live in Elizabethton tonight. Thank you.
As we mentioned, one of the victims of the flood disaster is a Sullivan County EMS worker. The body of Junior Godsey was recovered from the Doe River this afternoon. Godsey was a paramedic and a member of the Kingsport life-saving crew for over 12 years. He and 3 co-workers were making a rescue attempt yesterday morning when their inflatable raft capsized. The 4 were swept downstream. 2 of the rescuers were quickly pulled from the water, and another was rescued later in the morning. The Sullivan County EMS and Emergency Management Agency, Kingsport Life-Saving Crew, and Fire Department have pulled their units from Carter County.
The people who survived this disaster are giving thanks for their lives. Some of them have few material things left. Clyde Fuller's family and friends tried to salvage what they could from the Hampton home. Floodwaters tore the garage away and demolished much of the rest of the house. Fuller says he and his wife were washed away in the flood themselves and would have wound up in the river if not for a fence. The Fullers made their final mortgage payment on this house 3 months ago.
All these months we've been paying on it, and thought, well, years we paid on it, thought, well, we could go ahead and get it fixed up now the way we want it. It don't work that way. I guess we start over.
Starting over is what many of Clyde Fuller's neighbors will also have to do. Some of them are getting more bad news, that their homeowners' insurance policies don't cover this kind of damage. News Channel 11's team coverage continues as Christine Sorensen has details about flood insurance.
When any type of disaster strikes, most people count on their insurance to help them out. But regular homeowners insurance for a fixed structure home does not cover flood damage. Only federal flood insurance does.
In this area, probably 1 out of 100 homes probably has flood insurance.
Purchasing federal flood insurance can be a hassle with all the forms and can be expensive. The insurance itself can cost as much as regular homeowners insurance. But Agent Harold Dishner says it's worth it when disaster strikes. He says it's a mixed blessing that it happens rarely.
Unfortunately and fortunately. Fortunately, we don't have that flood but every 100 years, supposedly. But what happens, unfortunately, is you have children that's 2 and 3 generations removed that's never seen the damage of an actual flood until it's too late. And then it's too late to buy it after.
Insurance for a mobile home does automatically cover flood damage. It also allows money for temporary housing for people whose homes are unlivable. Because so many people take their chances hoping a flood doesn't hit, many banks and lending institutions now require anyone getting a mortgage to buy flood insurance if they're within a flood zone. Dishner says this has helped.
We've had probably more flood insurance policies sold in the last 5 years of my career than I probably sold all total in the first 15 years.
The odds may be good that a flood won't rip through your home, but with the strange weather patterns lately, Mother Nature's a pretty risky bet. Christine Sorensen, News Channel 11.
Insurance agent Harold Dishner recommends area residents check the current flood survey to find out if their homes could be at risk. For those residents who already have flood insurance, the Federal Emergency Management Administration must declare the flood a disaster before they can make their claims. The call for help.
New England and Canada that cut power to millions of customers. While the northern scene could be pretty, this was no innocent ice-capade, as CBS's Eric Ingberg found in Burlington, Vermont.
It would have been beautiful if it weren't such a mess. For a third day, rain and sleet pelted several northeastern states, icing up roads, trees, and power lines, wreaking havoc with travel and electricity. Power was out to hundreds of thousands of homes in Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, and New York.
It's far worse than any hurricane by a significant order of magnitude.
In the Burlington, Vermont area, hundreds of streets look like this, littered with fallen trees and limbs. It's caused by a thick coating of ice on the tree's branches. Vermont called out hundreds of National Guardsmen to assist exhausted utility crews. As old-timers shook their heads and proclaimed this was the worst ice storm they'd ever seen, many residents whose homes were without heat took shelter in school buildings. Utility officials said many people will have to be prepared to live without full electrical service for 4 days. Half of the state of Maine was without power.
Eric Ingberg in Vermont. While millions lost power in the north, some people in the south lost everything. At least 6 died in flood and mud, and there may be more, as CBS's Art Rascon reports from the scene in Hampton, Tennessee.
The grim job of searching for survivors reached an emotional climax late today when rescue workers discovered one of their own, dead.
He had volunteered to help us out, and everybody that was up there, unfortunately, saw what happened.
Junior Godsey was swept away in the raging torrent yesterday when trying to save stranded residents. In a dramatic rescue that nearly cost another life, Godsey's partner was safely brought to shore.
Nothing in here.
Just up the river, workers continue searching for survivors in neighborhoods wiped out by the massive flooding. The death toll has climbed to 6. At least a dozen are missing. Sheriff John Henson is still numb over what has happened to his county.
This storm came on us, as you might say, like a thief in the night. It came on us fast and quick.
Well, I've been through it 3 times, and this was the worst.
Residents like Mary Lou Byrne are now trying to get their lives back together. She's been walking the neighborhood picking up her belongings.
But thank the Lord, it could be worse.
But some residents don't believe it's over. With the strange weather systems that have moved through the area, residents worry that another bizarre system, like this one, could hit them again. Art Rascon, CBS News, Hampton, Tennessee.
There was a court hearing today in the Unabomb trial. This one...
Hey.
right here.
Like a tornado. fresh.
and outstepped the Vice President of the United States, Al Gore. His mission to tour flood-torn Carter County and see firsthand the extent of the damage caused by the January 8th flooding. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on this Wednesday. I'm Bob Lewis. Al Gore is in his home state, but his visit to Carter County may not be as pleasant as hoped for. The Vice President's tour has taken him through Roan Mountain, one of the hardest-hit areas in the county. And that's where News Channel 11's Christine Sorensen is standing by. Christine?
Bob, the major flood and the massive destruction it caused have already received national attention, but now the nation's #2 man in charge has come here to see for himself what the people are living and dealing with every day. Vice President Al Gore arrived by helicopter here at the Carter County Rescue Squad around 10 this morning. He began his tour of the flood's aftermath at Cloudland Elementary School, where the floods caused an early estimate of $1 million of damage. Now that cleanup's begun, most of what Mr. Gore saw were mud-splattered walls and floors. In the cafeteria, he walked through mud-stained desks and chairs, pianos, basketballs. The school superintendent, principal, and contractor for the cleanup showed Mr. Gore what needs to be done before the children can return. Many flood victims waited outside the school to meet the Vice President and thank him for coming.
It was great that he would care enough to come to a little community like this, and we're real thankful for everything that everybody did for us.
I spoke to the contractor who was in charge of the cleanup. He says it now looks like it might take 3 months to clean up the school before the children can go back, and they may just have to wait until the next school year. Right now, in the meantime, the children will be bused to other schools to finish out the year. Bob?
Well, Christine, what is the Vice President planning for the rest of the day?
Right now, he's touring some other flood-damaged areas. He's scheduled to be back here at the Rescue Squad building around 12:20 to leave by his helicopter to head for Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Bob.
Christine Sorensen, thank you, live in Roan Mountain. Stay tuned to News Channel 11 as we will have more on Gore's visit tonight on 5:30 and 6 on the News Hour. Another
flood watches are already up. Weather Center with the latest. Dave.
The problem, gang, is that the ground is already waterlogged with the recent wet weather that we've seen during this month, plus even some more snow melt across the mountains during the past couple of days, has concern for some possible flash flooding. And for that reason, we do have a flash flood watch in effect for the easternmost counties of Tennessee, the mountains, and also the mountains and foothills of North Carolina overnight tonight. Now, I think as things are all said and done with this storm system, the heaviest rains will probably fall east of the Appalachian Mountains into parts of North Carolina and Virginia. However, we could be looking at 1 to 2 inches of rain, maybe locally more than that across the mountains. Now, that kind of rain would not cause a flood like we saw in Carter County a couple of weeks ago, but folks need to be alert to the situation, especially if you live in a flood-prone area. Should streams rise and should they come out of their banks, be prepared to move to higher ground. But right now, no flooding occurring. The flash flood watch remains in effect for those areas overnight tonight. Garrick? Ann?
Okay, thank you, Dave. The rain is a big concern for folks in Carter County. Just 2 weeks ago, flooding killed 7 people and did serious damage there.
But work being done because of that flooding may actually help prevent damage in the future. Today, contractors are clearing rocks, trees, and debris from creek beds. It's part of a combined local and federally funded emergency watershed project.
Reopen the channels to remove the